The massive space station called Nexus Prime floated in the darkness between stars. It was the size of a small moon and home to the most powerful beings in the galaxy. Today, something unusual was happening. The Galactic Council was meeting for an emergency session. Inside the Great Hall, alien creatures of all shapes and sizes sat in their special chairs. Some looked like giant crystals that sparkled with inner light. Others were made of metal and circuits that clicked and whirred. A few appeared to be pure energy, glowing and shifting like colorful smoke. Admiral Thexoval of the Velkari Empire stood at the center. His crystal body reflected the light in rainbow patterns as he spoke. "The supremacy trials will begin soon," he announced. "As always, the winner will claim the Helix Nebula and all its riches. For 300 years, the galaxy's strongest races had fought these trials. It was not a war of destruction, but a test of skill. Each species would send their best warship to compete. The winner would get to mine the rare minerals in the Helix Nebula for the next 50 years. Fleet Commander Gorthak of the Cronin Federation made a sound like grinding bones. His biomechanical body was part machine, part living creature. "My ships can heal from any damage," he boasted. "They grow stronger with each battle." War Mistress Zephyria of the Astral Hegemony laughed, though she had no mouth. She was made of pure energy, and her voice came from everywhere at once. "Your living ships are nothing compared to my vessels that exist in multiple dimensions. We can attack from spaces you cannot even see." The other aliens nodded and made their own proud claims. Each believed their technology was the most advanced in the galaxy. They had weapons that could bend reality, shields that existed outside normal space, and engines that traveled faster than light itself. Then something unexpected happened. The great doors of the council chamber opened with a loud hiss. A figure walked in wearing a simple blue uniform. She was small compared to the giant aliens around her, with black hair tied back neatly and dark eyes that missed nothing. "I am Commander Park Jiwan of Earth," she said in a clear, calm voice. "Humanity requests permission to join the supremacy trials." The hall fell silent. Then slowly, sounds of amusement began to fill the space. Some aliens made clicking noises that sounded like laughter. Others created musical tones of disbelief. A few simply stared. Admiral Thexval's crystal body flickered, with what might have been surprise. "Did you say Earth? The planet with the primitive mammals?" "Yes," Commander Park replied without showing any emotion. "We wish to compete for the right to mine the Helix Nebula." Fleet Commander Gorthak's mechanical parts whirred loudly. "Show us your warship's specifications," he demanded. "What advanced technologies do you possess?" Commander Park activated a small device that projected images in the air. The aliens looked at the pictures of a human spacecraft and their amusement grew louder. The ship looked like it was made of simple metal plates welded together. It had chemical rockets for propulsion, just like the ancient vessels some races had used thousands of years ago. The weapons appeared to be basic kinetic launchers that shot solid projectiles. War Mistress Zephyria's energy form pulsed with what seemed like laughter. "This is your most advanced warship? It looks like something our ancestors might have built in their primitive age. Where are your energy shields?" asked another alien. "Your quantum manipulation drives? Your exotic matter cores?" Commander Park looked at each speaker calmly. "We do not have those technologies," she admitted. "We use what we have learned to build." The aliens exchanged glances and made sounds that clearly meant they thought humans were either very brave or very stupid. Some of them whispered among themselves about these newcomers who dared to challenge the galaxy's finest with such basic equipment. Admiral Thexval raised one crystalline arm for silence. "The Galactic Council has always been fair," he declared. "If humanity wishes to participate in the trials, we will not refuse. Though we must warn you, many advanced civilizations have tried and failed. Your simple technology may not survive the first encounter." Commander Park bowed slightly. "We understand the risks. Captain Lee Minho and the crew of the Iron Will are prepared to represent humanity." "The Iron Will?" Fleet Commander Gorthak repeated the name with what sounded like mechanical laughter. Even your ship's name shows your primitive thinking. Will and determination cannot overcome superior technology. Perhaps, Commander Park said quietly. But we have learned that sometimes the simplest solution is the most effective one. This statement caused more amusement among the aliens. They had spent thousands of years perfecting technologies that humans could not even understand. The idea that simple approaches could compete with their advanced sciences seemed ridiculous. The council voted quickly. It was unanimous. Humanity would be allowed to participate in the trials. Some aliens voted yes because they believed in fairness. Others voted yes because they wanted to see what would happen when primitive technology met advanced warfare. A few voted yes because they thought it would be entertaining. As Commander Park prepared to leave, War Mistress Zephiria's energy form drifted closer. "Why do your people really want to do this?" she asked. "Surely you know you cannot win." Commander Park paused at the door and looked back. For the first time, she smiled slightly. "My people have a saying. It is not the size of the dog in the fight, but the size of the fight in the dog. We may not have your advanced technology, but we have something else." "What is that?" the War Mistress asked. "The ability to make the most of what we have," Commander Park replied. Then she left the chamber, leaving behind a room full of confused and curious aliens. As news of humanity's participation spread through the galaxy, most beings reacted with amusement or disbelief. Some felt sorry for the humans, thinking they would be quickly destroyed. Others looked forward to seeing how long the primitive vessel would last against the galaxy's most advanced warships. But a few of the older and wiser aliens remembered something important. Sometimes, the most dangerous opponent was not the one with the best weapons, but the one who was willing to use whatever they had in ways no one expected. The trials would begin in 7 days at the Helix Nebula. The human ship Iron Will was already on its way, carrying a crew that the galaxy had dismissed as primitives. Captain Lee Minho and his team had no advanced technology, no exotic weapons, and no energy shields. What they did have was something the galaxy was about to discover: the human ability to turn disadvantages into advantages, and to find strength in the places others saw only weakness. The Helix Nebula stretched across space like a giant rainbow made of gas and stardust. Bright colors swirled and danced in patterns that could hypnotize anyone who stared too long. Hidden within the beautiful clouds were asteroids rich with rare minerals that could power entire civilizations. Captain Lee Minho stood on the bridge of the Iron Will, looking out at the spectacular view. His ship was small compared to the massive alien vessels gathering in the distance, but he felt no fear. Around him, his crew worked at their stations with quiet efficiency. "Enemy contacts on long-range sensors," reported Lieutenant Kim Do-yoon from the weapons station. His fingers moved quickly over the controls as he tracked the approaching ships. "I count at least 12 vessels of unknown design." Chief Engineer Bae Salmon looked up from her engineering console. "All systems are running perfectly, Captain. The engines are at full power and weapons are ready to fire." Navigator Shin Yuri studied her star charts and tactical displays. "The nebula's gravitational fields are creating some interesting patterns, sir. The gas clouds will affect visibility and sensor readings for everyone, not just us." Captain Lee nodded. "Good. Let them think their advanced sensors give them an advantage. Sometimes it helps to fight in conditions where everyone is equally blind." A new signal appeared on the communication screen. The image showed a creature that looked like it was made of liquid mercury, constantly shifting and changing shape. This was Commander Velthar of the Velkari phase ship Ethereal Fang. "Primitive humans." Velthar's voice sounded like musical chimes mixed with static. "I will give you one chance to surrender before I demonstrate why the Velkari Empire has ruled this sector for 2,000 years. Captain Lee activated the communication system. "This is Captain Lee Minho of the Earth vessel Iron Will. We are here to compete according to the rules of the Supremacy Trials. We do not surrender." Commander Velthar's form rippled with what might have been laughter. "Then witness the power of technology beyond your understanding." The alien ship began to change. Its solid-looking hull started to become transparent, then completely invisible. Within seconds, the ethereal fang had vanished from all sensors as it shifted into a phase state where it could pass through solid matter. On the bridge of the Iron Will, alarms started beeping as their targeting systems lost track of the enemy. Lieutenant Kim frowned at his weapons console. "I cannot lock onto the target, Captain. It is like they stopped existing." "But they have not stopped existing," Captain Lee said calmly. "They have only changed states. Navigator Shin, show me the gravitational readings around that area." Shin Yuri worked quickly at her station. "There are still gravitational effects, sir. Something with mass is moving through that space even if we cannot see it." Chief Engineer Bay looked up with sudden understanding. "Captain, I think I know what you are planning. Their phase technology lets them become intangible, but they still have mass. And if they still have mass, then they still follow the laws of physics." Captain Lee finished. "Lieutenant Kim, I want you to target the space where they will have to rematerialize, not where they are now." Kim's eyes widened. "Sir, that would require perfect timing and prediction of their movement patterns." "Then it is good that we have Navigator Shin to help with the calculations," the captain replied. "Begin tracking their gravitational signature and predict where they will solidify." The ethereal fang reappeared briefly, fired a blast of energy weapons at where the Iron Will had been, then phased out again. The human ship had moved just enough to avoid the attack. "They are moving in a spiral pattern," Shin reported. "Based on their previous attacks and the nebula's gravitational fields, I calculate they will rematerialize in Sector 77 Alpha in approximately 40 seconds. Lieutenant Kim loaded a spread of tungsten penetrator rounds into the magnetic launcher. These were simple solid metal projectiles, but they were accelerated to incredible speeds by powerful electromagnets. "Weapons ready, Captain." "Fire when ready," Captain Lee ordered. The Iron Will's kinetic weapons fired not at where the enemy was, but at empty space where Navigator Shin had calculated they would appear. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the ethereal fang materialized directly into the path of the tungsten projectiles. The alien ship's exotic hull, designed to deflect energy weapons and exotic particle beams, had no defense against simple solid matter moving at significant fractions of light speed. The tungsten rods punched through the crystalline armor like bullets through paper. Commander Velthar's voice came over the communication system, filled with shock and disbelief. "Impossible. How did you target us while we were phased?" "Your technology is impressive," Captain Lee replied. "But you still have mass, and mass creates gravitational effects. We simply followed the laws of physics that apply to everyone." The Yazidi damaged ethereal fang tried to escape, but a second volley of kinetic projectiles perfectly timed by Navigator Shin's calculations tore through its engines. The great phase ship, pride of the Velkari Empire, drifted helplessly as emergency pods ejected from its broken hull. Across the galaxy, beings who had been watching the trials through long-range sensors fell silent. The impossible had happened. A primitive human vessel using basic kinetic weapons had defeated one of the most advanced ships in known space. On the bridge of the Iron Will, the crew continued their duties without celebration. Chief Engineer Bay reported that all systems were still functioning perfectly. Lieutenant Kim reloaded his weapons and began scanning for the next challenger. Navigator Shin updated her charts with the debris patterns from the battle. Captain Lee looked out at the swirling colors of the Helix Nebula. "One down," he said quietly. "How many more are coming?" "Sensor readings show 11 more vessels approaching," Lieutenant Kim reported. "The Cronin Federation ships are moving to attack positions." "Good," Captain Lee said. "Let them come. They will expect us to use the same tactics twice. Time to show them that humans do not repeat themselves when we can innovate instead." "Commander." Velthar's final transmission echoed through space before his ship's communication system failed completely. "All vessels beware. The humans fight with weapons and methods we have never encountered. They do not play by the rules of advanced warfare." War Mistress Zephiria's energy form pulsed with sudden interest as she received the warning. "Rules?" she said to herself. "Perhaps these primitive creatures understand something we have forgotten. In real combat, there are no rules except survival." The first blood of the supremacy trials belonged to humanity. The Iron Will floated calmly in the beautiful chaos of the Helix Nebula, its simple metal hull unmarked by the battle. Around it, the wreckage of alien technology drifted like a warning to anyone who still believed that advanced science was more important than clever thinking. Captain Lee turned to his crew. Prepare for the next engagement and remember, they will adapt to what we just did, so we must be ready to do something they have never seen before. The galaxy was beginning to learn that humanity's greatest weapon was not their technology, but their ability to use whatever they had in ways no one expected. News of the Velkari defeat spread through the galactic communication networks faster than light itself. On Cronin Prime, the homeworld of the Cronin Federation, Bio-Admiral Krexthor received the reports with growing anger. The Bio-Admiral was a terrifying sight to behold. Half of his body was organic flesh and bone, while the other half was living metal that grew and changed like a plant. Tubes and wires connected the two parts, carrying both blood and electrical signals throughout his hybrid form. The humans destroyed the ethereal Fang, he growled, his voice mixing organic vocal cords with mechanical speakers. Commander Velthar was a fool. He relied too much on his phase technology and forgot the basics of combat. Around him, other Cronin officers nodded their agreement. Their race had long ago learned to combine living tissue with mechanical components. They believed this made them superior to purely organic or purely mechanical beings. "What are your orders, Bio-Admiral?" asked his second-in-command, a Cronin whose entire left arm had been replaced with a weapon that grew from her shoulder like a twisted tree branch. Krexthor stood up to his full height of 3 meters. "I will handle these primitive humans personally. Deploy the living decimator and 2 escort bioships. We will show the galaxy how the Cronin Federation deals with upstart newcomers." In the depths of space near Cronin Prime, 3 ships came to life. They were not built in the traditional sense. They had been grown. The vessels looked like enormous sea creatures that had adapted to survive in the vacuum of space. Their hulls pulsed with organic rhythms and weapon ports opened and closed like breathing gills. The living decimator, Bio-Admiral Krexthor's flagship, was the largest and most terrifying. It was nearly 1 kilometer long and covered with sensors that looked like eyes. Along its sides, smaller weapons grew like parasitic plants, each one capable of independent thought and action. As the bioships traveled toward the Helix Nebula, they began to change and adapt. This was the Cronin's greatest advantage. Their vessels were alive and could evolve to meet any threat. The escort ships started growing additional armor plating after analyzing the reports of human kinetic weapons. Meanwhile, in the colorful gas clouds of the Helix Nebula, Captain Lee Minho studied the new sensor readings with his crew. The approaching Cronin ships were unlike anything in their databases. "Captain," Chief Engineer Bae Soman called from her station, "these readings are very strange. The enemy ships appear to be alive. Their hull temperatures are fluctuating like living creatures, and I am detecting what might be heartbeats." Lieutenant Kim Do-yeon looked up from his weapons console with concern. "Sir, our kinetic weapons were effective against the crystalline hull of the Velkari ship, but living tissue might absorb impacts differently. We may need a new approach." Navigator Shin Yuri was already calculating attack patterns and defensive positions. "Captain, the bioships are approaching in a formation that suggests they can coordinate their movements instinctively, like a pack of hunting animals." Captain Lee nodded thoughtfully. "If they are truly alive, then they will have all the advantages and disadvantages of living creatures. They can adapt and learn, but they can also be confused, frightened, or made to act against their own interests." The Cronin bioships entered the nebula's outer edge and immediately began their attack. Bio-Admiral Krexthor had learned from the Velkari's mistake. Instead of relying on a single advanced technology, he deployed multiple strategies at once. The escort ships began to replicate themselves, using the minerals in nearby asteroids as raw materials. Within minutes, 2 ships had become 4, then 8, then 16. Each new vessel was slightly different, adapted for a specific type of combat. "They are multiplying," Lieutenant Kim reported with alarm. "How do we fight an enemy that can create more of itself?" The living decimator opened its weapon ports and began firing streams of organic projectiles that moved like living creatures. These bioweapons could change course in mid-flight, hunting their targets like predatory animals chasing prey. Captain Lee watched the tactical display as more and more bioships appeared. Chief Engineer Bay, what do we know about the frequency? Ranges that affect organic nervous systems? Bay's eyes lit up with understanding. Captain, all living creatures are vulnerable to certain types of electromagnetic interference. If we could broadcast on the right frequencies, we could disrupt their neural networks, Captain Lee finished. Not enough to kill them, but enough to affect their higher brain functions. Navigator Shin was already working on targeting solutions. Sir, if these ships are truly alive, they will have survival instincts, fear responses that override tactical thinking. Lieutenant Kim loaded a new type of ammunition into the magnetic launchers. Not kinetic projectiles this time, but specialized broadcasting equipment designed to transmit electromagnetic signals. Psychological warfare systems ready, Captain. The Iron Will began transmitting on frequencies carefully calculated to interfere with organic neural activity. The signals were not harmful in themselves, but they created confusion and fear in living minds. The effect on the bioships was immediate and dramatic. The smaller replicated vessels stopped their coordinated attacks and began moving erratically. Some crashed into asteroids as their pilot organisms lost the ability to navigate properly. Others simply froze in space as their nervous systems became overwhelmed. Bio-Admiral Krexthor felt the effects on his own hybrid nervous system. The electromagnetic interference made his organic brain feel like it was filled with static, while his mechanical parts continued to function normally. The conflict between his two halves made thinking clearly almost impossible. What are they doing to us? He managed to say, his organic vocal cords fighting against his mechanical speakers. The living decimator, being the most advanced bioship, tried to adapt to the new threat. It began growing additional neural shielding and filters to block the human transmissions. But the more it tried to protect itself, the more it isolated its consciousness from its own body. Captain Lee watched as the great bioship began to move. Like a creature in pain, its weapon ports opening and closing randomly, its sensors scanning in all directions as if searching for an enemy it could not see. Increase the signal strength, he ordered. Focus on frequencies that trigger primal fear responses. The Iron Will's transmissions intensified. Now the bioships were not just confused, they were terrified. Their living minds evolved over millions of years to fear certain patterns of electromagnetic radiation, could not overcome their basic survival instincts. The escort ships began fleeing in all directions, their replicated crews unable to maintain formation as panic took over. Several crashed into each other as they tried to escape the invisible threat that seemed to come from everywhere at once. Bio-Admiral Krexthor's living decimator made one final attempt to attack the human ship, but its organic targeting systems were so disrupted by fear that its weapons fired wildly in all directions. One of its own bioweapons struck an asteroid and exploded, sending debris into the ship's own hull. Retreat. Krexthor managed to order through his malfunctioning communication systems. All ships retreat to safe distance. But it was too late for many of the bioships. Those that had not already crashed or fled were now completely paralyzed by terror, their living crews unable to function as their minds were overwhelmed by artificial fear. The Iron Will stopped its psychological broadcasts and watched as the surviving Cronin vessels limped away from the nebula. The living decimator was heavily damaged, its organic systems still twitching from the neural assault. Chief Engineer Bay reported that all human systems were functioning normally. Captain, our transmitters worked better than expected. The bioship's own advanced nervous systems made them more vulnerable to psychological attack, not less. Lieutenant Kim was already scanning for new threats. 2 enemies defeated, sir. But the remaining alien fleets are sure to develop countermeasures. Captain Lee looked out at the wreckage floating in the nebula. Bioships that had grown too afraid to function, replicated vessels that had lost their coordination, and the proud, living decimator retreating with its crew still shaking from induced terror. Let them develop countermeasures, he said calmly. Every solution they create will be based on their assumptions about how we fight, and every assumption they make gives us another advantage to exploit. Navigator Shin updated her tactical charts. Captain, long-range sensors show the remaining alien fleets are forming some kind of alliance, multiple species working together. Good, Captain Lee replied. The more complex their plan, the more ways it can go wrong, and humans have always been very good at finding those weak points. The second victory belonged to humanity, won not through superior firepower but through understanding that even the most advanced living weapons were still subject to the basic laws of biology and psychology. The galaxy was beginning to realize that the humans did not just think differently, they fought differently too. The emergency meeting took place in a section of space far from the Helix Nebula. Representatives from the galaxy's most advanced civilizations gathered their fleets together for the first time in centuries. What had started as a simple trial of strength had become something much more serious. War Mistress Zephyria of the Astral Hegemony floated in her energy form between the massive ships. Her body was made of pure light and force, existing in multiple dimensions at the same time. She could see and attack from angles that normal beings could not even imagine. Beside her, the mechanical form of Processor Prime Axiom 9 clicked, and Word as its quantum brain calculated thousands of possibilities per second. The mechanical concordate's greatest artificial intelligence had been built to solve any problem through perfect logic and overwhelming computational power. DDR, third member of their alliance, was perhaps the most dangerous. Mind Speaker Aetherius of the Psionic Collective. This being existed mostly as pure thought, able to read minds, control emotions, and attack directly through mental force. Its physical body was small and weak, but its mental powers were beyond measurement. The humans have defeated our two strongest individual fleets, Processor Prime Axiom 9 stated with mechanical certainty. Statistical analysis indicates a 97.3% probability that their success is not based on luck or accident. War Mistress Zephyria's energy form pulsed with frustrated colors. They use primitive technology but apply it in ways we did not predict. The Velkari were overconfident in their phase abilities. The Cronins underestimated the psychological warfare potential. Mindspeaker Aetherius projected its thoughts directly into their minds. I have analyzed the available data about human mental patterns. These beings think in ways that are difficult for advanced civilizations to understand. They see solutions where we see only problems. Then we must adapt our approach, Axiom 9 calculated. Individual attacks have failed. We must coordinate our efforts to create a situation where their primitive methods cannot succeed. The alliance they formed was unprecedented in galactic history. 3 completely different types of existence working together: energy beings, mechanical constructs, and psionic entities. Their combined technologies created possibilities that no single race could achieve alone. War Mistress Zephyria's ships existed partially in hyperspace, able to attack from dimensions the humans could not reach. Processor Prime Axiom 9's mechanical vessels were immune to psychological warfare and could repair themselves faster than any weapon could damage them. Mind Speaker Aetherius commanded ships that could control their enemies' thoughts and actions directly. Together, they planned the perfect attack. In the Helix Nebula, Captain Lee Minho sensed the change immediately. His crew had been monitoring long-range communications and detecting the movement of multiple fleets toward their position. Captain, Navigator Shin Yuri reported with concern in her voice, I am reading massive energy signatures approaching from 3 different vectors. These are not like the previous attacks. Multiple species are working together. Chief Engineer Bae Soman looked up from her engineering console with worry. Sir, our sensors are detecting technologies we have never seen before. Ships that seem to exist in multiple dimensions, mechanical constructs that appear to be immune to physical damage, and vessels that are broadcasting some kind of mental interference. Lieutenant Kim Do-hyun checked his weapons systems with growing unease. Captain, I do not think our previous tactics will work against this combination of enemies. They have learned from our earlier victories and adapted. Captain Lee studied the tactical displays showing the approaching enemy fleets. For the first time since arriving at the Helix Nebula, he felt the weight of the challenge they faced. The aliens had stopped underestimating humanity and were now treating them as a serious threat. They are using their greatest strength, he said quietly. Perfect coordination between three completely different types of technology and existence. Energy, mechanical, and psionic forces working as one. The alien attack began from all directions at once. War Mistress Zephyria's energy ships phased into hyperspace and started firing from dimensions the Iron Will could not reach. The weapons appeared from empty space, striking the human vessel from angles that should have been impossible. Processor Prime Axiom 9's mechanical constructs attacked with mathematical precision, their weapons calculating the exact point where each shot would cause maximum damage. When the Iron Will's kinetic weapons struck back, the mechanical ships simply repaired themselves faster than they could be destroyed. Mindspeaker Aetherius launched the most dangerous attack of all, a direct assault on the minds of the human crew. Waves of psionic force tried to take control of their thoughts, to make them turn their weapons on themselves or surrender without fighting. On the bridge of the Iron Will, alarms rang from every system. The ship was being attacked from 3 different types of reality at the same time, and none of their previous strategies seemed to work. "Shields are failing," Chief Engineer Bay called out as energy weapons from hyperspace tore through their defenses. "The attacks are coming from dimensions our shields cannot protect against." Lieutenant Kim fired everything they had at the mechanical ships, but watched in horror as the enemy vessels rebuilt themselves in seconds. "Our kinetic weapons are useless, Captain. They repair damage faster than we can cause it." Navigator Shin struggled to plot evasive maneuvers as waves of psionic interference clouded her thoughts. I cannot concentrate, sir. Something is trying to take control of my mind." Captain Lee felt the mental attack himself. A pressure in his head like invisible hands trying to squeeze his brain. The alien mind controller was attempting to force him to surrender, to make him believe that resistance was hopeless. But as the psionic assault intensified, Lee realized something important. The three-way attack that seemed so perfect had a critical weakness. The aliens were so focused on coordinating their different technologies that they had created a system that was extremely complex and delicate. "Chief Engineer Bay," he called out, fighting through the mental interference. "The electromagnetic pulse charges we used against the bioships, can you modify them for a broader frequency range?" Bay's eyes widened with understanding even as she struggled against the psionic control. "Yes, Captain. If we can disrupt the quantum entanglement that allows their 3 different technologies to work together." "Do it," Lee ordered. "Full power to the EMP generators. Target the spaces between their ships, not the ships themselves." The Iron Will's electromagnetic pulse weapons fired not at the enemy vessels, but at the invisible connections that allowed energy beings, mechanical constructs, and psionic entities to coordinate their attacks. The crude but powerful electromagnetic interference disrupted the delicate quantum fields that made their cooperation possible. The effect was immediate and devastating. War Mistress Zephyria's energy ships lost their dimensional anchors and began to collapse back into normal space, their carefully controlled forms becoming chaotic and unstable. Processor Prime Axiom 9's mechanical vessels lost synchronization with their quantum processors, causing their perfect calculations to become random errors. Most dramatically, Mindspeaker Aetherius screamed across all mental frequencies as the electromagnetic interference severed its psionic connections not just to the human crew, but to its own fleet. The mental attack stopped instantly as the alien mind controller became isolated in its own thoughts. "Their coordination is breaking down," Navigator Shin reported, her mind clearing as the psionic assault ended. "The energy ships are losing cohesion. The mechanical ships are firing at random targets. The psionic vessels have stopped all activity." Captain Lee watched as the perfect alliance fell apart. War Mistress Zephyria's flagship imploded as its hyperspace generators failed, creating a bright flash that could be seen across several star systems. Processor Prime Axiom 9's command ship spun out of control as its quantum brain suffered what could only be called a mechanical nervous breakdown. Mindspeaker Aetherius managed one final transmission before its vessel fled the battlefield. Impossible. How can electromagnetic interference overcome transcendent consciousness? The Iron Will floated calmly in the aftermath of the battle, its simple, metal hull barely damaged, Despite facing the combined might of 3 galactic superpowers, around it the wreckage of the most advanced technologies in known space drifted like monuments to the failure of complexity. Chief Engineer Bay reported that all human systems were functioning normally. "Captain, the EMP attack was even more effective than our calculations predicted. The aliens' advanced coordination systems made them more vulnerable to interference, not less." Lieutenant Kim was already scanning for any remaining threats. "All enemy vessels are either destroyed or retreating, sir. The Alliance has completely collapsed." Captain Lee looked out at the beautiful colors of the Helix Nebula, now made even more spectacular by the light of burning alien technology. "Sometimes, the most advanced solution is just the simple solution with more steps," he said quietly. "And the more steps you add, the more places where things can go wrong." Navigator Shin updated her charts with the new debris patterns. "Captain, we have now defeated representatives from every major galactic power." The Helix Nebula had never been so quiet. The colorful gas clouds still swirled in their eternal dance, but now they were filled with the wreckage of the galaxy's most advanced warships. Pieces of crystalline Valkyrie technology drifted alongside the organic remains of Cronin bioships. The twisted metal of mechanical constructs mixed with the fading energy signatures of dimensional craft. At the center of it all, the Iron Will maintained its steady orbit around a mineral-rich asteroid. The human ship's simple metal hull reflected the nebula's light, unmarked by the battles that had raged around it. On the bridge, Captain Lee Minho stood with his crew, watching as the last of the alien rescue vessels departed the battlefield. "Captain," Lieutenant Kim Do-yeon reported from his weapons station, "all remaining alien vessels have withdrawn beyond the nebula's outer boundary. We appear to have control of the entire Helix Nebula." Chief Engineer Bae Soman looked up from her engineering console with a mixture of pride and disbelief. "Sir, our ship has taken minimal damage despite facing the galaxy's most advanced fleets. All systems are operating at full efficiency." Navigator Shin Yuri was updating her star charts with their new territorial claims. "According to the rules of the Supremacy Trials, humanity now has exclusive mining rights to the entire nebula for the next 50 years. The mineral wealth here could transform Earth's economy." Captain Lee nodded, but his expression remained thoughtful. "The minerals are valuable, but I think we have won something much more important. We have changed the way the galaxy thinks about technology and warfare." Across the galaxy, emergency sessions were being held in every major government center. The impossible had happened. A primitive species using basic technology had defeated every advanced civilization that challenged them. The implications were staggering. On the great station Nexus Prime, the remaining members of the Galactic Council gathered in stunned silence. Many seats were empty now, their occupants either dead or too injured to attend. Those who remained struggled to understand what had happened to their carefully ordered universe. "How?" Admiral Thexaval asked, his crystal body flickering with confused patterns of light. "How did they defeat technologies that took us thousands of years to develop?" The question echoed through the chamber, but no one had an answer that made sense. Their most advanced sciences, their most powerful weapons, their most sophisticated strategies, all had failed against simple human ingenuity. A communication signal arrived from the Iron Will. Captain Lee's image appeared on the great screens, flanked by his crew. Commander Park Ji-won stepped forward to address the assembly. "Honored members of the Galactic Council," she began in her calm, clear voice. "Humanity has completed the Supremacy Trials according to your established rules. We claim the Helix Nebula as our prize, but more importantly, we offer you a lesson." The alien representatives leaned forward despite themselves. Even in defeat, they were curious to understand how they had been beaten so completely. Commander Park continued, "You asked us how primitive kinetics could defeat quantum phase manipulation, how simple electromagnetic interference could overcome psionic dominance, how crude psychology could triumph over transcendent consciousness. The answer is not in our technology, but in our approach." She gestured to the crew around her. "Each of you spent so long perfecting solutions to complex problems that you forgot simple problems still exist. Your shields stop energy weapons, but not solid objects moving fast enough. Your adaptive systems counter advanced tactics, but not basic physics. Your transcendent minds can read thoughts, but not predict actions driven by simple determination. Admiral. Thexaval's crystal form grew brighter with indignation. Are you saying that advanced science is worthless? Not worthless, Captain Lee replied, speaking for the first time. But incomplete. Science without wisdom becomes complexity without purpose. Technology without strategy becomes power without direction. You built amazing tools, but you forgot the most important tool of all, the ability to think simply and clearly. The truth of his words hung in the chamber like a physical weight. The aliens had become so focused on technological superiority that they had lost sight of the basic principles of problem-solving and adaptability. Commander Park stepped forward again. Humanity offers the galaxy a new perspective. We are not here to conquer or destroy. We are here to remind you that intelligence beats technology every time, and that sometimes the best solution is not the most advanced one, but the most appropriate one. War Mistress Zephyria, her energy form weak and flickering after her ship's destruction, managed to project her voice into the chamber. What do you want from us? What are your terms? Captain Lee smiled slightly. We want to trade, to learn from each other, to show you our way of thinking while learning about your technologies. Humanity's greatest strength is not our weapons or our ships. It is our ability to adapt and find new solutions to old problems. You defeated our finest fleets with primitive technology. Processor Prime Axiom 9 stated, its mechanical voice, filled with something that sounded like electronic confusion. Why would you want to learn from us? Because your technologies are not the problem, Captain Lee explained. The problem was how you used them. Phase manipulation, biomechanical, adaptation, dimensional existence, quantum processing, psionic control. These are all incredible achievements, but you relied on them so completely that you forgot the basics. Chief Engineer Bay stepped forward to add her thoughts. Imagine what we could accomplish if we combined your advanced sciences with human adaptability and strategic thinking. Not to replace one with the other, but to create something new that uses the best of both approaches. The idea sent waves of discussion through the assembly. For centuries, the galactic powers had competed against each other, each believing their own technological path was superior. The humans were suggesting something radically different. Cooperation based on complementary strengths rather than competition based on technological dominance. Navigator Shin brought up holographic displays showing the battle data from the supremacy trials. Look at the patterns, she said. Every time you relied purely on your advanced technology, you became predictable. Every time you tried to use brute force or overwhelming complexity, you created weaknesses we could exploit. Lieutenant Kim added. But when your technologies worked together, when you coordinated different approaches, you were much more dangerous. The problem was not your science, it was your strategy. The alien representatives began to understand. Humanity had not won through superior technology, but through superior thinking. They had identified weaknesses in approaches that had seemed flawless, found solutions that had never been considered, and turned advantages into disadvantages through creative tactics. Mind speaker Aetherius, its mental voice weak but clear, projected one final question. If we accept your offer to learn from each other, how do we know you will not use our technologies against us? Captain Lee looked directly into the chamber's recording devices, knowing his words would be broadcast across the galaxy. Because we have already proven that we do not need your technologies to defeat you. Our strength comes from how we think, not from what tools we use. We want to trade knowledge because knowledge shared becomes knowledge multiplied. Commander Park stepped forward to deliver humanity's final statement. The galaxy now faces a choice. You can continue to compete through technological complexity, creating more and more advanced weapons that will eventually be defeated by simple solutions. Or you can embrace a new way of thinking, one that values adaptability over advancement, strategy over superiority, and cooperation over competition. The session ended with the alien representatives returning to their homeworlds to discuss humanity's offer. Some were angry at their defeat and wanted revenge. Others were curious about human methods and wanted to learn. A few were wise enough to see the opportunity that had been presented to them. In the Helix Nebula, the Iron Will continued its patrol among the mineral-rich asteroids. The human crew worked steadily at their stations, monitoring the space around them and beginning the process of establishing mining operations. Captain Lee stood at the observation window, looking out at the swirling colors of the nebula. Behind him, his crew prepared for the long task of extracting the rare minerals that would fuel humanity's expansion into the galaxy. "Captain," Navigator Shin said quietly, "do you think they will accept our offer?" "Some will," Lee replied. "Others will not. But we have planted an idea that will grow. The galaxy has seen that there is more than one way to solve problems, more than one path to success. That knowledge cannot be forgotten, no matter how much they might want to forget it." Chief Engineer Bay joined them at the window. "What happens now, sir?" Captain Lee smiled as he watched a group of mining ships arrive from Earth, ready to begin harvesting the nebula's wealth. "Now we build something new, not just with minerals and metals, but with ideas and knowledge. We show the galaxy that humans do not just fight differently, we think differently too." The Iron Will had won more than the supremacy trials. It had won the right to change how an entire galaxy thought about technology, warfare, and cooperation. The simple metal ship floating in the beautiful chaos of the Helix Nebula represented something revolutionary,